Welcome to this week's moonLight of Emuna, Parshas Vayeitzei. This week's learning should be a schus for Fushleim for Chanamash Bas Vilcher Shmuel Shnei Zam Bechav Menachem Mordechai Ben Afir Michaim Ben Sarah and Lishmas Henya Bas Yechiel Mechel and Ratza Bas Menachem Mendel. And also it should be a schus for all of the soldiers and the people in Eretz Yisrael and the hostages and Jews around the world. Everyone should be safe, and we should see the Geula come from this darkness, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit. So the parsha begins Vayeitzei Yaakov mi Beersheva. Yaakov left Beersheva. Vayelech Harana. He went to Charan. Vayifka b'mokim, and he encountered the place Vayolen Sham, and he slept there. On these words, Vayifka b'mokim, he encountered the place. Rashi tells us a few very important things. First, Rashi tells us what was this place. So Rashi tells us it was Har Moriah, right? And Rashi brings another pasuk that by Avram it was referred to as Hamokim. So b'mokim refers to the place of Har Moriah. That Yaakov encountered that place, right? Because the pasuk doesn't tell us; it just says b'mokim, the place. What's that place? Rashi says Har Moriah. Then Rashi tells us what does Vayifka mean? He encountered. So says Rashi, "V'Rabbeinu Pirshu, our Rabbeim taught us lashon tefillah. It's a lashon of tefillah. Kamay v'al tifka bi, don't beseech me." That Hashem says to Yirmiyahu. It's don't beseech me. Vilim danu, and it taught us shetikein tefillas arvis. It taught us that, right, as the Gemara in Brachos says, that Yaakov Avinu instituted the tefillah of Arvis, which this Rashi doesn't mention, but which we learn in the Gemara in Brachos is a reshus, right? That Shachris and Mincha that Avram and Yitzchak established, those are chiyuvim, those are obligatory. Yaakov's tefillah of Ma'ariv is a reshus. What that means exactly, la halacha, we treat all three as obligatory, but the Gemara says that it's a reshus. We're going to come back to that. And then Rashi goes on and says, and this seems to be a little bit out of place, V'shina hakasav, and the Torah changed the lashon, and it didn't say, the Torah could have said instead of Vayifka b'makom that he encountered the place, it could have said Vayispalo b'makom, he davened in the place. Lamedcha, to teach us shekafta lo haaretz, that the earth contracted for him, that the earth contracted and made his trip shorter, or as some explain, that Har Moriah was moved to where Yaakov was, but that he was able to get there. And the Sfas Emes is bothered by this. He says, what are these two things? That's Rashi making one statement, that Yaakov davened there, right? Vayifka means davened there, and he was Masakin Tfilas Arvis, and the reason why the Torah doesn't use the word Vayispal but uses Vayifka is because the earth was contracted. So ask the Sfas Emes, what do those two things have to do with each other? It's very nice if the earth Yaakov Avinu had Kfitzas Haderach. Great, so tell us that. But how does Rashi connect them? Rashi seems to say that these two things are connected. That Yaakov davening there and davening Tfilas Arvis, davening Ma'ariv, had something to do with the fact that the earth contracted. So the Sfas Emes explains that the Torah is teaching us something very important. The Torah is teaching us that a person sometimes could find himself in certain places, in certain circumstances, where he thinks that, I'm too far gone, or it's too dark right now, or there's no way I could attach myself to Kedusha, to holiness right now, right? Says the Sfas Emes, that's why, according to those who say that Har Moriah was moved to where Yaakov was, that Yaakov, why would it be moved there? Yaakov Avinu really wanted to be at Har Moriah. He really wanted to be at that place where his grandfather Avram had brought his father Yitzchak as an oila. He really wanted to connect to that place. He's about to go into Gullus. He's about to leave Eretz Yisrael. He's about to leave his parents' home, and he wants to connect to that special place. But it was very far away. It was far away. So Hashem made a beautiful miracle for him and brought Har Moriah to him. Brought it to him. So he says the Sfas Emes, that is exactly what Ma'ariv is. The tefillah of Ma'ariv is, right? Because when do we daven Ma'ariv? Shachris and Mincha we daven when it's light outside. Shachris is in the morning, Mincha is in the afternoon. We daven when it's light outside. Ma'ariv is a tefillah that has to be davened in the dark, right? It's a place where there's no light. The dark, especially think about in the olden days before there were electric lights, night was very dark, right? But Yaakov is in this dark place. He's about to leave his home. He's about to leave Eretz Yisrael. He's going into the hands of Lavan. He has Esav chasing him. He's in a very dark place. But Yaakov wanted so badly to be in a place of light, to be in Har Moriah. And the Torah is teaching us is that when a person desires something so badly, without limits, and he wants it so badly, and it's a good thing. It's something he wants Kedusha. Yaakov here wanted Kedusha, wanted the light of Hashem. So then things will happen in a way that's not derech hateva. Everything depends on the desire of a person. A person's holy desires can change his reality. There's a pasuk in Yeshayahu that we're all familiar with, but the pasuk says, it's a Perek Nun Zayin pasuk Yutes, it's Bari Niv Sifasayim. Hashem says, I create the speech of the lips. Shalom Shalom L'Rachik V'L'Karev, peace to the far and to the near. Amar Hashem Urefasiv. Says Hashem, and I will heal him. So the Sfas Emes points out in this pasuk, he says that Shalom Shalom L'Rachik V'L'Karev, it sounds a little funny. The person who's rachik, who's far, right? It means peace to the one who is far and the one who is near, and I will heal him. So it seems like the one who's far doesn't really have peace, but we know that nothing evil comes from Hashem. Everything that Hashem does is for our best. We may not see it, but everything is for the best. That means that if a person feels pushed away, feels like he's in darkness, that is also for his best, right? Why? Because what happens very often is when a person feels far away, so he digs deep to find out what his true desires are, what are his real ritzonos, and through that he's able to awaken something in that place, some illumination, some of the light of kedusha of Hashem. Yaakov Avinu is misaken tfilas arvis ma'ariv, because that's in the darkest place, when a Jew is in his darkest place. And the Torah is saying that connected to tfilas arvis is the fact that the land of Har Moriah was moved to where Yaakov was. That even when we're in the darkest place, if we turn to Hashem and we daven with true holy desires, so the place that we want, even though it seems so far, could be brought right to us, could be brought exactly where we are, in that darkest, deepest place. And Yaakov Avinu was teaching us that before he went into Gullus, and he saw that his children would spend so much time in Gullus, and sometimes we feel so distant and so dark. We have to remember that if we dig deep and we reach out to Hashem and we daven Ma'ariv, that davening that's in the darkness, we can have Har Moriah brought mamish to us. We could get that light of Hashem brought right to us in the darkest place that we're in. Now, to talk about the idea that Ma'ariv is a reshus, so there's a beautiful idea from the Likutei Halachos from Rabbi Nosson of Breslov. He says that we know that this tefillah that Yaakov Avinu was masakin, tefillah's Ma'ariv, is in the deepest, darkest things, like we were just speaking about from the Sfas Emes. It's in the bitterness of the Gullus. Night is the bitterness of the Gullus. But we know that through that bitterness of the Gullus will be when the third Beis HaMikdash will be built. Mirz Hashem, very soon. We should see it very, very quickly. But the third Beis HaMikdash, which is the eternal Beis HaMikdash, that is the schus of Yaakov. We know the first Beis HaMikdash was Avram, the second one is Yitzchak, the third one, the eternal one, is Yaakov Avinu. Chazal tell us that they correspond to that, and that's why specifically Yaakov Avinu had to make Ma'ariv a reshus. So he asks, and bringing out this point, he says, what do you mean that you're misakein a reshus? If Yaakov Avinu was misakein tfilas Ma'ariv, so then he either established it or he made it optional. Reshus means it's optional. Did anybody have a thought that you're not allowed to daven at night? Right? It sounds like when you say, before Avram was Masakin Tefillah Shachris, would anybody have thought that you can't daven in the mornings if you want? You can. So what does it mean that Yaakov? So it means that when Avram was Masakin Tefillah Shachris, means he said you should daven, you have to daven Shachris. So what does it mean that Yaakov was Masakin it? That means you thought you couldn't daven at night? Yaakov therefore says you can daven at night. It's a reshus. It's an option to daven at night. Why would I think I can't daven at night? So says Rabbi Nosson that Yaakov Avinu saw the depth and the darkness of this gullus that we're in, which is hopefully coming to an end. And he saw how the other side, the side of darkness and the Yetzer Hara would have a lot of power and would be pervasive everywhere. And it would be so dark, it would be the darkness of night. And he saw that people in our situation would think that it's impossible to daven in these circumstances. It's impossible to daven under these circumstances. How could I reach out to Hashem? I'm so far from Hashem. How could I possibly connect? Therefore, Yaakov Avinu was misaken that you can daven at night. It's a reshus. We're not talking about obligations. You would think in these types of circumstances it's impossible to daven. Says Yaakov Avinu, you can daven. We would have thought that in these circumstances, davening. No, Hashem doesn't want to hear my tefillahs. Davening would be impossible. The koach of tefillah, the koach of speaking is gone. We would think that it's so dark. And Yaakov Avinu davens Ma'ariv. He's in this low place where he's about to leave Eretz Yisrael and leave everything and go into Gullus. But yet he's in Har Moriah. Har Moriah was brought to him. So he's both at the same time in the lowest place and the highest place, which is symbolized by the ladder, right? The ladder, the malachim are going up and down. The lowest place connected to the highest place. That's what Yaakov Avinu is teaching us. Yaakov Avinu is teaching us even when you're in the lowest, darkest place, you can be in an instant, you can be in the highest place. Even if you're in the darkest dark night, in complete being completely obscured, a person can inspire his strong desires to daven and to return to Hashem, and he should never give up from tefillah. There's no such thing as a Jew who can't daven. A person cannot be misyayish, can never despair of davening and screaming to Hashem. He quotes his Rabbi Nachman, who we know famously says that there's no such thing as a Jew. Ein yush b'olam klal. He quotes here, Shelo yisyayish v'natzak about tefillah. You should never give up. He says it actually in Yiddish here. Abi mizich nicht miyayish von shrayin, mishreit mebeit. A person should never give up from screaming, from asking, from pleading from Hashem, and then everything will turn around to the good. Therefore, Yaakov, and he says Yaakov includes all of the tzaddikim that would come after him, because Yaakov Avinu was the one who all of his children were tzaddikim. All tzaddikim come from Yaakov Avinu, as opposed to, let's say, Avram and Yitzchak, who had a Yishmael and an Esav. By Yaakov, it was all tzaddikim, right? So Yaakov Avinu is with that strength, he instilled into the heart of every Jew until the last days, until the last generations before Mashiach, our generation before Mashiach, that even now in the bitterness of this galus, which is the darkest dark of night, every single person has to look deep to the ultimate truth, until each one will take strength wherever he is in the darkest places, to those Jews fighting in Gaza, to people who are never going through difficult tsar, to every single Jew, no matter how dark it feels for him at that moment, that each person will tap into those strong desires that he has and those longings for Hashem. Right? And a person can tap into those even when everything seems hopeless and lost. When we're at the lowest point, when we feel like all we have is downfalls, at that point, that even there, we don't give up, we never despair from Hashem's compassion, Hashem's Rahmanas, and we strengthen ourselves with longings and desires, good ones, holy ones, until we're awakened to scream out and to daven to Hashem and to beg Hashem that no matter where we are, no matter where we're holding, that Hashem still loves us, to tap into that knowledge and to know that Hashem wants us to daven to Him and wants to give us what we need and what we want for us individually, for all of Klal Yisrael. That's the Tfilas Arvis that Yaakov said was a reshus. It's a reshus because, first of all, I can't obligate you to daven under these circumstances, but know that you can. You might think you can't. You might have had that havamina, that first thought that I can't daven in these circumstances. Says Yaakov, no such thing. A Jew, that's why Arvis is specifically a reshus. No such thing as you can't daven. You need to tap into that good that's inside of you. You need to tap into that love that Hashem has for you, to that Rahmanis that Hashem has for you. And with that, we can scream out and daven. And we know now we're living through a time where Klal Yisrael more than ever feels that darkness, but also sees the love, sees Klal Yisrael coming together, sees the potential, sees the glimmer of light. We need to tap into that. That's what Yaakov Avinu taught us. We need to scream out in a tefillah of Ma'ariv, tefillah of Ma'ariv, when the rest of the world would tell us, what are you doing? How could you possibly daven? We say, no, this is what we do. We daven to Hashem. We know that Hashem loves us. We tap into this. We never give up. We know that Hashem is there for us. And with that, we will be able to, Mirz Hashem, very quickly bring Mashiach Tzidkenu b'meher v'yameinu. I wish you all a beautiful, wonderful Shabbos.